Okay, looking at our next question. Question asked, how do you know someone is the right one? Like, you can both really like each other, but how are you supposed to know if it's for real? And this is a real common question. I think anybody that's truly wanting to date with a high level of integrity, try to date the right way, um, is going to have a question like this. And the short answer is there is no formula and there's no hard and fast rule. And I wish there was. Again, this kind of comes back to when the Bible was wrote, there wasn't this dating process. How I knew that I was supposed to marry Jordan back then would have been my dad would have come home one day, said that him and my father-in-law swapped sheep and goats, and that's it. Then we're getting married. At least now we get a choice. Um, but there's some wisdom that we can glean from the Bible, and there are some common experiences. The same wisdom, the same common experiences, the same common grace gets used to really in both instances. Remember, dating's going to have two ends. It's a process towards an end. Either it's going to end in a breakup, which will be every relationship that you ever have, except for the one that you get married to, or it will end in marriage. But the process is actually going to be pretty similar. You can both really love one another and really love the Lord, and it still end up in a breakup. And that's a really common experience. The students that walk through that faithfully and obediently, my heart goes out to them. I know that pain. I know that that is confusing at times. When you really wish you could just place your finger on something and point to it and say that's the problem, that's the thing, that's the reason. But you can't. You just know that it's supposed to be done now. And while there'll be a day you look back and say, and that's okay, I know it's really hard in the moment. But I want to express and say that you will gain strength from that later on in life when you have to make other difficult choices, that you can't really place your finger on something being wrong. You just know that that's not the direction God's wanting you to go right now. Now, there are factors that are in play when it may be time to make this decision. And again, this decision is someone the right one? Now, I'm want to stress this a lot, and this may be where some of us disagree on things, and that's okay. This isn't tier one theological triage, non-negotiable disagreements, right? This is tier three, tier four stuff. But I don't think that this is a decision you try to make until it's time to make it. Um, that's just me, though. But one of the factors at play is there comes a decision point after a certain period of time where if we've been dating for years and we're not in school or we're on the back end of school, um, you need to make a choice, and it's going to be a hard one. But why would you be 26 dating for 4 years and not have a ring involved? I feel like you would have already. I feel like your indecision has made the decision. I didn't come up with that. That's Nick Cooper. I told you on the first video. There's these people, my parents, these four men, and in particular this one book, the Bible. Yes, but I'm giving you my resources outside of the Bible that uh, that I really gleaned the idea of after 3 4 years, and we're in a position of we can actually now get married, and I don't think you wait. That this whole idea of, well, we want to get our career established and start earning money. Look, I understand that. I understand you're trying to be at that point where you kind of sidestep the whole young and broke phase together. Um, Jordan and I cherished that phase. It was not an easy phase, but we cherish it. Now, our context might be a little different than yours. I'm 4 years older than Jordan. That means I was in a career whenever we got married, and she was still in school. She also only had 1 year of school left. That's a lot different than two summer after freshman year of college students. You both have 3 to 7 years of schooling left. If you're going to be a doctor, do I think it means that you wait until you finish med school? No, I really don't. I really don't. Journey through that together. Whenever I asked Jordan's dad if I could have his blessing to propose to her, he did ask me if I would consider waiting until after she had finished nursing school for us to get married, which at that point would have been another year and a half. And I said no. I said, we'll find a way to make it work. Um, But if I'm proposing, it's because I'm trying to get married to this girl, trying to lock her down. If I had her fooled up to that point, I knew the longer I waited, the more I risked her realizing that she could do better. But one of the factors, one of the major ones is if we reach this point of time, you've got to make a decision. You really do. And if you're afraid of making the decision, then I would say you know the answer. For me, what got the ball rolling with knowing that I was going to propose to Jordan is there was one day that I was like, you know what, it's been a year. I know. I've gotten to evaluate her character. I've seen her in all these different circumstances. I see her friendships. I know that she's a horseshoe. I know that she has flaws, but I also see her working towards growing in Christ. And there were a number of things, but ultimately, what started the ball rolling was a realization one morning. For me, it was a morning that it is now time to make a decision. The evaluation process had come towards an end, and I knew that I needed to make a choice, and that wasn't a day that I was fully looking forward to. It's half excitement, half I want to throw up, because there are two conclusions at the end of that question. And one of them was really going to be painful, and one of them was really going to be exciting and terrifying. And thankfully it was the exciting and terrifying one. So you sometimes it comes down to a decision after a period of time. Sometimes it comes down to the counsel of those around the couple. And I mentioned in another video, so I'm not going to go into it here. But there's got to be people around you that know your relationship well, not because of what you report back to them, like a reporter from the war front calling in a newspaper story. No, like people that are around you and they see y'all together. They see if you build one another up, if you crack jokes at the other's expense all the time, if they're always stirring the pot. Like they see how you interact as a couple and they know you well. You want to get their take. That doesn't give them veto power. Okay, so what did that look like for me? That means there were some of my boys, some of my squad that it was like, look, I'm thinking about proposing to Jordan. I want to know your take. Not one of them had a veto. However, if I have 4 roommates and all 4 I line up and all 4 said no, this is a bad idea, and that doesn't at least make me stop and consider, then shame on me for letting them think that they're that close of friends to me. That all of them could be unanimous in what they believe to be wise counsel as best they can give it, and I not even consider it. Shame on me. So you want to see if your friends are people whose counsel you would actually take to heart. I have a very near and dear friend that planned on proposing to a girl, and it was this step in the process that revealed to them that this was not a girl that they needed to be proposing to, because across the board their friends said no. And then when they talk to family, they've said no. And that's the next one. Depending on your relationship with your family, and I know this varies in dynamic from family to family. Some families are just not going to care, yeah, whatever. Some families are very anti-marriage, and that breaks my heart. I understand where they come from, but it breaks my heart, and it certainly breaks the heart of God, because that's a gift that He gave us. But that's that you want to talk to them, but at the same time, I know it's different. But for me, that involved talking to my parents and getting their take on it. Did they know the details of our relationship as much as my roommates? No, we lived over 2 hours away. Did they know me? Yeah, my parents knew me well. And my mom knew what she saw when Jordan and I were around one another. My mom knew what she saw when Jordan was around and I wasn't. My mom and my dad saw things, and did they have veto power? No, they really didn't. I wasn't living in the house. I was on my own. I was independent. I was working a job in my career. But again, shame on me, right? If I'm not at least going to consider their input and their counsel. And that includes even if your parents aren't saved. And I know that makes it a little bit heavier and a little weightier. And that's not even a real word. And my heart goes out to you in that instance. But you've got to honor your parents. Okay, that's Bible. And so you at least ask. I had a friend who asked his girlfriend's dad. And my friend is out of college. They've been dating for over a year. He's working a job. It's not a career, but it's a job. And he loved Christ. She loved Christ. They loved one another. It was a wonderful, wonderful relationship to be part of. But I will tell you this, when my boy goes to her dad and her dad says no, and then he lists point by point by point why he was not going to give his blessing, my friend could have, in a spirit of rebellion, which God never honors a spirit of rebellion. You won't find one instance where God honors a spirit of rebellion. In a spirit of rebellion, he could have said, it doesn't matter, you're not the boss, and proposed anyways. But he didn't. He humbled himself, went before God, came back, talked to some of his boys, and was like, where's the truth in this? He did this the wrong way, but where's the truth in this? And we gave the hard advice, the hard observations, and what came out of that was about a year where he went point by point by point and addressed all of the issues that her dad had, so that one day he went to her dad, explained to him that he did all of the things that the dad said were in the way of a blessing, and he got her dad, his now future father-in-law's blessing. And I can tell you, up until that point, her dad did not like him, not even a little bit, and not because my friend jumped through the hoops do they now have a great relationship, but because my friend was humble, and he showed his now father-in-law the love that he had for his now wife was so great that he was going to address these issues. He won him over. He didn't just receive a blessing, he now has a trusted person that he loves and that loves him back. And their relationship is strong. And now you've got something that God has blessed and honored, where you could have had something that God did not honor and that Satan could use to cause strife and adversity in your marriage. So you want the counsel of those around. You have decision point after X period of time, the counsel of those around the couple, the counsel of family members. And these are only things that happen when we're ready to pop the question. Okay? Remember, you want to keep an open hand in your dating, and you want to keep running after Jesus as hard as you can. There's going to come a time that a choice of the relationship has to be made, where either we're going to end this thing or we're going to get engaged. And ladies, look, yeah, you're probably thinking, well, it's not on me to propose. Look, that's okay. But if we're at the point that it should have happened, not in a type A control freak sense, but in a, man, look, we're both 27 making the money we're going to make, like it's time, and he hasn't, then end it and make him make the decision that way. And then if he comes back, he doesn't come back just to hang out. He's coming back with a purpose. I'm learning how to talk today. And just one last little thing. I'm going to ask you, we say when you're dating, date. Look, don't plan and talk about your marriage while you're dating. It's really simple. Okay, if you spend all of your dating time talking about when you're going to be married, what are you going to talk about when you get married? During this whole time, you could have been learning how to have a relationship with one another, how to talk with one another. Instead, you spent that time talking about how I love you so much, we're going to be married one day. I know that you mean that. I understand that. There are two really big issues with this. One is where it comes from. It's an understandable place that it comes from, okay? I have these deep feelings for you. I want to express them. Sex and physical interaction and expression of that is off the table, okay? So, well, I'll tell you I love you, okay? And then now we're on another relationship. Well, I told the last one I love them, so I really love you. And then we get to this point where it's like, okay, like I want to marry you one day. Like I can't, but I want to. And so I understand how we get there. But what we're doing is we're now awakening an intimacy, and we're stirring an affection that we're not ready to see come to its conclusion. If I'm not in a position to pop the question, I'm not in a position to talk about what married life is going to be like with you. I can't. It's not fair to your heart and it's not fair to mine, because what we've now done is we've now added in extra variables, which most of you hate algebra. And even though I love it, I don't want to add extra variables to a life question. You've added in extra variables into this evaluation process. And so you've made what is already weighty, and you've made it almost impossible to navigate because you didn't control your tongue. I understand where it comes from. Be disciplined in the words that you use. The second problem with this is that you end up, every time I say to my girlfriend that I'm going to marry you, I can't wait till we're married, what I'm doing is I'm taking something that should be an open hand before God every day when I die to myself, Luke 9:23, and I'm slowly closing that hand. And like we've talked about all year long in Connect, God has this nasty, nasty habit, and it's because He's the Lord of all. All right, like He's entitled to this, and He wants my heart completely. But anything that I've switched hands, but anything that I've got in my hand like this, God's got this nasty habit of walking up saying, "What's in your hand? Can I have it?" And He's a gentleman, so He's going to wait until I freely surrender it to Him. But I'm telling you right now, if I've told her that I'm going to marry her multiple times, I'm going to be a lot less likely to open this up, hand it to God, and say, "Okay, you're right. It's time for me to move in a different direction." And when I do, or when she does, and we finally give in to that weight, and it's going to take a lot longer than it should have, then the other party is going to be justified when they say, "But you told me you were going to marry me." That's a real hard conversation that I'm trying to keep you from having. Okay? Don't do it. I understand why you want to go there. Okay, I understand why. And if you've already rung that bell, you can't unring the bell, but you can stop ringing the bell. You can stop playing house. Okay, remember, there's no such thing as almost married, kind of married, practically married, or sort of married. There's dating, engaged, and married. So this is one of those things that does really come down to a binary status. We are married or we are not. Now, you could argue there is the third status of engaged, and I can buy that. But engagement is when we begin to not only plan the wedding, but we begin to dream about a marriage. Okay? Don't rob your engagement because during dating you ran out of things to talk about. Don't rob it. When you're engaged is when you do those things. Listen, that may mean you go through a weird stretch of silence, but you're going to figure out that's better than having to walk something back that really carried more weight than you realized. We want to save the wedding planning for when there's a ring on a finger, no sooner. I understand that there are people that dream about their wedding in theory. Great. But if we're dating and you've picked venue, date, wedding party, colors, if you've picked those things, you've gone too far. And you've broken the order. 1 Corinthians 7:35, I told you this stuff was going to come back to it. You've broken the order that God has placed. Okay? I understand where the initial question comes from. How do you know someone's the right one? That's probably more than you intended to bite off when you ask that question, but why not go ahead and give the complete answer as best I can. Thanks.